comics with care. Welcome to the store. I'm Mike. This is Alex.
Mr. D'Angelo, I'm just making sure you received that notice I sent you.
What notice?
Your lease is up next month. Inflation.
Mike, check this out. Wild Imagination Comics just opened up down the street.
I think we should go check out that other comic shop. See how the other half lives.
I'm Chad. My dad owns the company. You know, we're hiring. You know anybody who's interested? The only comic store in town.
What about Mike's World?
Not much to see, though. Unless you're Mike.
Okay, I've seen enough. Let's get out of here before I throw up.
Honestly, Mike, I think you need some new customers.
Tell me something I don't know. Hey, kid.
What are those? Those are really good.
You know, I was an illustrator for about 5 minutes.
Think you could teach me to draw like that?
Tell you what, you build me a kick-ass website, I'll help you learn to draw.
Deal.
How was your day, son?
Mom and I found a really cool comic book store.
You know, the kid's fun to have around. He's really making an impact around here.
I just don't understand why you keep encouraging this comic book thing.
And I just wish my dad understood how I feel. I don't even think he likes me. Why are we sitting in a parking lot to draw?
I wanted to show you that inspiration can come from anywhere. The dog is an alien beast with a whip.
Wow.
Hey, look, it's Mike from Mike's World. Going on a business sale here, Mike?
I think each person needs to follow their own unique path. And otherwise, you'll just be wondering what if. And being a small business owner was never my passion. That's my plan B. Seriously, just work hard and you'll get your chance. Never have a plan B. Here's the stuff. I'm carrot top, bitch. Yeah, it's true.
Boom, there you go. That was the trailer for the comic shop arriving in 2025. We don't have an exact date yet, but we'll give it to you as soon as possible. I'll be doing a lot more coverage on the comic shop as it comes along to support my man, as you see on the screen, writer, director, Jonathan L. Bowen. How are you, sir?
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm doing great. And, you know, I hope people like the trailer and want to check out the movie.
Definitely, man. So as we were talking before we got recording, man, and having fun, you and I are very much cut from the same cloth as creatives. You know, we aspire, things kind of start from the comic book shop. For me, it started in a comic shop. I wanted to become the next Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, you know, but I also had a love for film and thankfully found myself in both industries, in the film industry as well as comics industry. And to see that you had very much the same way and vision, but then we talk about plan Bs. I don't know about you, but in a Filipino household, it's okay to do the arts and be creative, but that isn't what we want you to go to college. I ended up going into the military, but then I found my way back into the arts. And, you know, you find your way back into the things you love, but then also you kind of get disenfranchised with things. And I know that's somewhat the subplot of the comic shop. Can you tell me maybe your personal story and then how the comic shop kind of encapsulated some of these narratives for a lot of us creatives of that journey, but then we come up with plan Bs. Things don't always work out, but then, you know, still things may find its way if that's what your love and passion is. It's beautiful to see it shine through.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I had sort of a personal journey like that as well, where, you know, I knew I wanted to do filmmaking, but, you know, my dad would also be like, well, you know, son, how are you going to make a living? And it, you know, for him, it was always the practical side. Like, you got to find something, take care of yourself, make money. So when I went down to LA to pursue film, I would get this all the time. Like, I had only been there for 6 months and I'm still like, you know, I went to film school for a bit. I dropped out after like 2 months because we learned so much. And the teachers kept saying, you kids are going to learn more on the outside than you're going to learn here. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So, you know, I've barely been down there and my dad's already like pressuring me about how I'm going to make money. I'm like, I don't even know how to make movies yet, let alone make money at anything, you know? So he put the idea in my head of doing like corporate video work. So I founded my corporate video company about 16 years ago. And that was very much plan B. Like we were talking senior living videos, apartment tours, healthcare videos, training. Most of it's not very exciting. I have done, lately we've done some kind of cool stuff. Like we've done some work for Fantasy Flight Games and their Star Wars and Marvel, different themed games and whatnot. And you'll get some cool stuff. Like we did a video for the Defense Department once, but most of the time it's pretty boring and pretty much not what you want to be doing. It's just money. So as I had done a feature film in my 20s, I spent more than a decade before I could do the comic shop. I just, I had to stick with something that made me money and kind of grind away until I could get to the point of making another try of it. So
I feel that in every way, my friend. Yeah, a lot of the features that I've worked on because I was an actor with a security clearance, filmmaker with a security clearance. A lot of the work I've done, like you, were these industrials, as it were. To tell people how to do their jobs and all that stuff. And and what really connected me when I watched, I had the blessing of, thank you for screening your film already.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The military kid. The father's military of the character that befriends Jesse Metcalfe's character. Like I was that kid, and having my mom who supported me with comic books. I totally connected with these characters.
Oh, that's awesome. My mom was the same. My mom was if we went to the comic shop, I can't remember one time my dad ever took me to the comic shop. But my mom probably, bless her soul, probably a couple hundred times. She would be, she'd bring me, and then sometimes if we didn't find what we wanted at the one comic shop, I'd beg her to bring me to the other one, which is like across town or whatever.
Shout out to those amazing moms. We definitely appreciate you. And those dads. We understand where the dads were coming from because, we had to provide and put food on the table. And, I learned a lot of discipline there. But yeah, definitely appreciated all these characters. I want to talk. So let's talk about the seed of the film and then, encapsulating this and working with Jesse Metcalfe. I had the pleasure of interviewing him recently this past year on his film On a Wing and a Prayer that he did.
He was great in that. Yeah, he was great in that.
Yeah, and he's even more amazing in this. I've to see him kind of grow as an actor and all of the trials and tribulations he's gone through in his own life. I love kind of how that was reflected, and just bravo to Jesse and also climbing board as a producer with you on this. Can you tell me, working with him, that collaboration, and just also some of the other amazing stars that you were able to bring on board, like my man Eric Roberts. I interviewed him also this past year.
Oh, nice!
Another great film. So I already have somewhat of a connection to this film with some of the talent you brought in.
That's really cool. Yeah. So Jesse, once we were really waiting to go full steam ahead until we had our lead actor, just because it's so important to know that, we're spending a decent amount of money. We need to have somebody who checks the boxes and can get out there and get that media attention and bring some, interest in the film. It's very tough to make an indie film with absolutely no one in it. Because if you talk to your friends and family, one of the first things they'll say, right, is if you said, "Oh, I saw this movie called The Comic Shop," the person's going to ask, "Oh, who's in that one?" And if you're kind of like, "Oh, no one's in it," it's a tougher sell. It's not impossible; it's just tough. So when Jesse came aboard, I was really excited. I really felt like there was a lot of untapped potential where Jesse is such a good and talented actor, and he can do anything that you want him to do. But a lot of times he's getting cast in movies that he's just the tough guy, he's just the action star, or he's just the heartthrob, or he's kind of being put into these boxes that aren't necessary based on the talent that this guy has. And of course, you saw we put him through the paces in the comic shop. He's in virtually every scene. So it's not like one of those things where you see the movie and you're like, wait a minute, this guy was in the trailer, but he only is in 7 minutes of the movie. Jesse had worked 14 days out of the 15 days that we shot. So he had ones early on, I think was one of the first days, third day maybe. He had a day with 15 scenes. And granted, some of them were, they weren't dialogue. Some of them were just him moving about, making his food or whatever. But that's a lot of scenes in a day. To cover all that,
Yeah.
But yeah, he was great to work with. And Eric Roberts just kind of came about at the end of, sort of the end of pre-production. Hey, would you like to have Eric Roberts do a cameo? And, I'm like, well, who wouldn't want that? Like, that sounds great,
Yeah.
And so then he actually sent in a video audition for us. Like, I mean, he's such a legend, and he sends in this video audition. We're like, no, 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 you're hired. No, you don't need to audition for this. So it was kind of funny, but what a good sport. And we all had a lot of fun working with Eric. I think his scene is still one of the funniest in the movie. Just to make clear, the movie is not like a it is a drama, but there are funny moments, and he bringing in that little bit of levity, I think, is always fun, because you can have a movie with serious themes, but if it isn't enjoyable to watch and it's just a slog, I mean, it feels like homework at that point.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally. I thought they were fantastic, and also shout out to Carrot Top, nice little cameo in there. And Tristan Mays.
Yes.
She actually, I was not familiar with her work until this.
Oh.
Fantastic actor. Can you talk about Tristan and also the young Micah Giovanni, who
Absolutely.
I could totally relate with because I was him at that age.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So was I. So that's one little aside, is that so there's elements of me and myself in Mike, that's Jesse Metcalfe's character, and in Brandon, who's Micah's character. So in some ways, there's a little bit of like seeing young Jonathan and older Jonathan like interact. One's grumpier and a little more cynical. The other's enthusiastic, and everything's going to work out in the end. So Tristan was really kind of, to me, that was one of the most fun castings, because we had kind of racked our brain, like, we want someone, like, it's got to be somebody good. Can we get another person who's at least has a good following and who people know about? And, we struck out a couple of times. Actually, one of the options is Victoria Justice, and she didn't really understand it. Like, I think she might have been a little intimidated. Like, I don't know what comics are and all this, but it was still cool. She took a look, and I had watched basically the whole MacGyver reboot during the pandemic. And I was a huge original MacGyver fan. I love that show. I watched all the reruns over and over. And I thought, okay, I'll give a try to this reboot. So then when we were talking about names, I thought, have you guys heard of Tristan Mays? And one of the producers was like, yeah, I know who Tristan is. And I said, well, I don't know if, like, I mean, she was the lead actress on MacGyver. So it's like, I don't know if we can afford her. Like, can we get her? And they were like, well, it doesn't hurt to try. And she accepted in less than 48 hours and came aboard. And I was so excited, because it felt very surreal. At that point in the pandemic, I was, like a lot of people, just very negative and very much like, are we ever going to like get to go out and make movies again? Are we going to get to go outside and have fun? And so I remember having all these negative thoughts and thinking about like making my next movie and wanting to do it so bad as I was watching MacGyver. And so then when I meet her in person, it feels weird. It's like, this is somebody I've spent like dozens of hours watching on this TV series, and like, oh, here she is in person now, So, and she was really so nice and sweet to work with. She would come to set days where she didn't have any lines or any scenes, just to see what's going on. So she knew like how her character fits into the whole thing. And
wonderful.
So we had a great time. Yeah.
Amazing. So I have to tell you, she stood out for me. And actually, when I looked into her background after I watched the film, I'm like, oh, now I was aware of the MacGyver reboot, didn't check it out, was a fan like you of the original series, but now I want to like dive into more of her work. I think your film spotlighted her as a performer to me, and I'm a new fan, Tristan. If you're watching this, shout out to Tristan Mays and Jesse Metcalfe. Yeah, again, this to me also showed so much more of his range. Like you said, he's always kind of typecast as that heartthrob or that kind of like a tough guy. This, Metcalfe is a lot deeper. And shout out to my man Jesse, and just really enjoyed his performance in this. And to rising star in Micah Giovanni.
Micah was amazing, and he was. I considered him sort of like a key find, because he was the role where, like, look, we don't have a bunch of money to throw at this. Like, it has to be a relative unknown, and it has to be somebody who is really can act. And think about the assignment you're giving them. Like, his character has as many scenes as Jesse's does, and he's playing against Jesse. So if this actor isn't good, I mean, it would. I think it sinks the whole film. I think all of a sudden you have a movie that's just not very good. And so Micah's performance was so important, and he was so natural in it. Like, on set, I always joke about this. He doesn't mind if I joke about it, but the only advice we'll ever give him is, Micah, speak up, because he has a tendency to kind of like mumble a bit, and it goes with this character though to an extent, because he starts out shy and he kind of comes out of his shell. And Jesse is, of course, excellent at projecting. Like, whenever Jesse's doing a scene, I mean, he could be doing it for theater. He's very clear. So I would start to walk over to Micah, and before I could even get halfway there, he's like, "Speak up," and I'm like, "Yeah." And then I just start walking back towards the director's village, video. So yeah, it was great working with Micah. I think I think he's got a career in front of him, because I think, people are going to see him in this movie and be like, hey, this kid's really good. And he had a great little cameo scene in, I think it's The Girl in the Pool, the new Freddie Prinze Jr. movie.
Oh, okay.
Which, I can't wholeheartedly recommend the movie, but I will recommend Micah in it. He's really good. And it's kind of intriguing. So yeah, that was really fun to work with them.
Awesome. Well, shout out to your cast again. Great to see Jesse kind of do something different, and Tristan. I got my eyes on her. She's gonna definitely do bigger things. I think she just has that charisma.
Yeah,
the way they both played off each other was really good, and then how the relationship, may or may not go. I don't want to spoil. My apologies, but just worked really well with the both of them. And again, yeah, shout out to young Micah and Eric and Carrot Top, just all this cast. Let's talk about the actual production. You said about 15 days, Vegas. What was that like, getting locations? What was that like for you as a filmmaker, and putting it all together? And was there anything that didn't make like the final edit that, maybe can give us a sneak peek on, that that just due to time and or maybe things that just couldn't happen because of budgetary concerns, or maybe
I can think of one that is kind of a regret like that. So yes, we had some great local producers as well who helped us with all the locations. And one thing about them is they knew which places are friendly to filming, and they've maybe filmed there before. So one of the restaurant scenes is at a place called Herbs and Rye, which is like one of the hot spots in Vegas. Like, all the locals go there. They all know where it is. And I guess that the owner was like, he was not big into the idea of people filming there before, somewhat recently, before we shot. And, he had a great experience, and he got a bunch of media out of it. And people were like, oh, okay, wow, they're filming here. And so then he kind of got into it. So I was excited we were able to film there. And those are always fun opportunities. Like, we filmed at Hash House A Go-Go, which when I first moved to Vegas was one of my favorite restaurants. So it was kind of neat to be able to be like, oh, cool, we're actually filming there. So the one that comes to mind that was a budgetary loss, and it was just too logistically difficult to pull off. The scene at the end where Mike goes bowling. This doesn't really spoil anything, but they're just going bowling. And that was not supposed to be bowling. The original version was that they're at a Golden Knights game, because like, I'm a diehard Vegas Golden Knights fan, and it's a big part of the community. So we tried. We did go down that path to see like, how could we somehow time this and then get them to go into a game, even if we have to, we have to ADR, like loop all the lines later or something like that. Wouldn't it be neat to have this, this group go to a game? But then you run into issues like, how do you clear all the licensing? Like, that you have to clear with the NHL, you have to clear with the Vegas Golden Knights and the Players Association. And I know there's a way to do it, but on the time and budget that we had, it just wasn't realistically going to happen. So we kind of came up with bowling on the fly. And I don't want to lie to you, that was not decided before we started production. So we were about a week into production and still didn't know where that scene is going to take place.
Yeah.
I decided that bowling made sense because I thought if it was something like golfing, it's less social. Like people get further apart in golf. You know, somebody goes to see their ball. I couldn't really see that working out very well. I also worried because we were filming in the winter and the movie takes place in the summer.
Yeah.
What if there's trees around there? What are they going to look like? We already had issues with that in the park, and we used a lot of color correction, leaf blowers, and a lot of good framing to hopefully make it so audiences are not thinking about that at all. It looks okay, but we had scouted that park 2 weeks before, completely green. Like this was middle of November.
Yeah.
And then we came back there to shoot, and all of a sudden there's trees that are brown, there's leaves on the ground, like that in 2 weeks. It's unbelievable.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love this kind of behind the scenes, pulling the curtain back.
Right.
But I think it works with the character. Just between you and I know the rest of the world hasn't seen it yet, but the characters, that the reasons why this happens makes sense. I think it makes sense. I'm prior military too, because I went that route because I had all these art scholarships, Jonathan. Like I said, this is my story. I went to the military, I did 4 years, came back out, and still, have that military gigs, but I got back into film. So
awesome.
It makes sense though, because there's a lot of those bowling alleys involved with that. Anyway, I don't want to spoil for the people.
I think that's so neat, honestly, for me, that like you've seen the movie and that you have that connection to like being, a military person. And here's, this movie that incorporates that, where, you've got the dad is this very strict military guy, but he does have a softer side, as we learn. But it's neat because that's the goal, is to hope that people can connect to this movie in different ways. And I like the idea of having a military dad because I thought I kind of came up with it thinking, well, Brandon moves a lot. Like he doesn't have a lot of friends. He's new to town. What would make somebody move a lot in their youth? Like their dad could get transferred. It could be sales or something. But then I thought, I want him to be kind of like strict. So this makes sense. Like, and then I thought, of course, being in Vegas, I'm like, well, we've got Nellis Air Force Base, which is, a huge base. And I know the dad's older, so he's not like a soldier or something. So it's like, maybe he's an engineer and works on the aircraft. Like he's, in aviation, but he doesn't fly. Like,
oh no, so it makes I would have definitely written the disciplinarian, because like I said, I connected. This is me as a kid growing up. This kid.
Right.
And it makes perfect sense. And then the mom buying the comics. I love it.
It was totally me too. Yeah, I was the same.
So Jonathan, a great film. Again, everybody's going to be dropping in 2025. Check it out, The Comic Shop. Through this experience and creating this film that reflects on your life, reflects on my life, it's going to reflect, and I know it's going to totally connect with so many people. What do you hope people take away from the message? I really appreciated that, life, we're going to follow certain paths, come up with plan Bs, but also just don't forget, what really makes you happy. I think, there's some different messaging that I think can take away, but what do you hope for yourself and your intention with this script and this film?
That pretty much hits the nail on the head. I mean, I think what it really is asking people is like, if you are getting to the point where, a lot of people in my generation, where you're in your 40s, or I think if you're in your 50s, you're in your mid 30s, doesn't matter, anywhere where you had these dreams when you were in college or when you were in high school, and you kind of had to put them aside because life happens and you have to be practical. We all need to eat, we need to pay rent, right? But I think what I want to say is it's not too late. You don't have to give up on your dreams, even if you just plug away on a Saturday. It's something that you're really passionate about, and that it can't take over and be your number one right now. Like, don't end up being that person who's 75 years old and wonders what if. I mean, really put yourself in that situation and think how much dread there is, how much regret there is that you are now too old to change that, and it is what it is. But if you're like in middle age, it's not too late. there's tons of examples of people starting out at a new career in their 40s or their 50s and becoming big successes at it. The only risk you're really taking is taking no risk at all. That's kind of what I feel. So
Well said. I always think about Samuel L. Jackson. He did, I think, Coming to America at, like you said, like 30s, 40s. And then look at that man now. He's Nick Fury. He's been in everything. He snakes on a plane. Samuel L. Jackson is my mantra sometimes. That man started late and kept on going. So
I know.
it was never too
love
late.
And he works so hard. He's always in like so many movies, and I know that's what keeps him going. He has that passion. And that's what I would say too, is like, find that thing that you're really passionate about. Like, I know it's tough to make a living off your passion, but don't give up on it at least. Like, especially in the world that we live in today. I mean, look at it. We got people on Instagram making a living on just being influencers. So if they can do that, you can make your dreams come true. No one's going to say it's going to be easy, but I just think if you give up, then, there's a 0% chance. So
I love that. I love that mantra, and I enjoyed this film, Jonathan. Bravo to you. Two more things before I go. You know what? This poster, as a film head like you, old school film head, it reminds me of those Indiana Jones, Drew Struzan, Star Wars posters. Bravo to your team on this poster. I love this poster. If we can give a shout out to that artist who helped put this together for you. And then just, as you said, you're never too late to get things going. You finally got this comic shop film out. You were doing these industrial product films. What other film hopefully you're going to be now working on, without spoiling? I know you probably don't want to give away too much right now, but how this is now coming from this. I know you're doing the press for this and you're still going to be pushing this. It's, still to be released, but I'm hoping I'm going to get more work out of you, Jonathan. I want to see what you're going to do next, because I enjoyed this film.
Well, thank you. Yeah, of course. Me too. That is the goal, is to have this lead to, something else. And I've got kind of a sort of a action sci-fi thriller thing that it's not super high budget, but it deals with a lot of issues about memory and the way that we deal with criminals, I guess, is the way to put it. So it's like a rehabilitation. It's very philosophical, but it's also like enjoyable on its own as like a mystery, like action mystery.
Nice.
So I'm sort of hoping to get that off the ground. This poster artist, he is a legend in his own right. This is Stephen Chorney. And Stephen Chorney was the guy who did the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood poster for Quentin Tarantino. So that was kind of its own thing. Is I wanted something that was drawn, and I wanted something that was really striking. And we struck out a couple of times finding somebody, and the proofs weren't good, didn't come out. So I thought to myself, because the inspiration was always that poster for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I thought, man, who could do a poster like this? And then I'm like, who could do a poster like that? The guy who actually did that poster. So
why not? Let's go for it.
I found him and I asked him if he does independent films. And he said, I do, but I'm not cheap. And I said, I wouldn't expect you would be.
Yeah.
So he did give us like at least some discount, because he knows we're not Marvel, we're not the studios, and he does like tons of huge work. Like, just look through his stuff. Like, he also did the Nicolas Cage one, the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Oh, okay.
He did the Monster Trucks poster with Lucas Till, and he did in fact do some Indiana Jones stuff back in the day. Those were his things. So like, if you saw those kind of like, oh, it kind of looks like that, it's like, yeah, he did a bunch of those. So
I love posters like this, that style of artist. Yeah, so shout out to him. I remember that name now. I know Drew Struzan did something.
I love Drew Struzan.
You know, so those guys, this type of a style film theatrical poster always grabs me, gets your attention. It gives you the characters that are in it, gives you a little bit of what's in it in the film. Bravo on the poster. So money well spent, I gotta tell you.
Yeah. we won best poster at the Orlando Film Festival, so I love it that's the only award that like we won. We got nominated for best director and best film, but it's kind of funny to win that award, because I could not help myself to make the joke that to put that laurel like on the poster and it says best poster, because then it's like the poster has given up promoting the movie and is only promoting itself.
Well, I think when people finally see the film, I think it's going to definitely get an audience because, as I said, Jonathan, I totally connected with it and the story, and I feel connected with you because I know it's very much your story as well. Bravo to you, sir. And let me remind everybody again, dropping in 2025. Hopefully, we can also have Jonathan L. Bowen back to talk more and give you your virtual flowers, but definitely recommend this one. It's an entertaining film, man, and definitely one that I know others like myself as a military brat kid, creative filmmaker, aspiring for those dreams and following those dreams that we can all relate to. And enjoy the comic shop, sir.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I hope so. I really feel like people are going to be able to relate to it, and I think they'll enjoy it. It's a fun watch.
Awesome. Jonathan L. Bowen, y'all. The comic shop arriving in 2025. I'm going to have links to Jonathan in the description below as well. So you can show love, subscribe, do all the things on the socials. And we'll definitely have him back as well when things drop. Jonathan L. Bowen, y'all. I'm Kuya P. This is Nerds Rule the World. All right, there's a cut, Jonathan.
Sounds good.
All right. Pleasure, Jonathan. Again, pleasure to meet you, man. All right.
So nice to meet you too.
Wonderful. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.